Now, I know the Game Week 22 deadline is still a bit of a way off, but I wanted to keep you ticking over with some FPL content. So here are players to buy and avoid for Game Week 22. Now, after he's just played, you can't really not talk about Ivan Toney. In my opinion, I think he's genuinely one of the best strikers in the league, and he proved that last season, right? I put the stats up for both last season and the one game he's played so far this season. I mean, he scored 20 goals and got 4 assists for Brentford from 33 starts. Like, that's absolutely incredible, and we all know he's nailed to start. You know, we've seen how much hype Brentford have put around him, right? He's absolutely nailed on to play. He's going to play 90 minutes when he does. I would be a little bit worried about a potential top Premier League team picking him up. But given that Brentford don't have Mbeumo, you know, to back him up, I do worry about their hopes of basically staying in the league without Toney in the team. I really do think Brentford were in trouble without both Toney and Mbeumo. Yeah, it wasn't looking too good for them. So I do think they're going to hold on to him through the January window and probably sell him in the summer, which means we get one more, like half a season out of him, basically. And like I said, nailed to start. He took the free kick at the weekend and he's on penalties, plays 90 minutes. He just ticks all the boxes you want in a good FPL asset. And he has a double game week in 25. What more could you want, right? And I would also say last season he proved he's relatively fixture proof as well. He scored goals and Brentford did well against all of the top teams. Like, Brentford seem to really step up their performance levels against the top teams. They really can go toe to toe with them, which means I wouldn't let the slightly tough run of fixtures he's got coming up put me off. I think he is a fantastic FPL option. Next up is a player that hasn't actually featured yet in Game Week 21. He was, of course, ruled out for a few weeks by the Liverpool assistant manager, but I do think that Trent is going to be back fit for Game Week 22. It looks like his recovery is happening a little bit quicker than was expected. And if he is fit for Game Week 22, with the potential double game week that Liverpool have in 25, I think he's a fantastic option. And the way I think about Trent is, I know he's an 8.5 million defender, right? But I don't necessarily think of him as a defender. I think of him as a player that can get returns through 3 different routes, essentially. Obviously, goals, assists, and clean sheets. And this season, he's had 13 returns from 17 starts. Now, for 8.5 million, I think that's really decent value. And I'd say Liverpool, on the whole, they've definitely improved defensively this season as well. They have been, you know, I think they've conceded the fewest goals of any team in the Premier League. So I think that kind of says it all, really. So I do think that Trent has got a chance of some clean sheets coming up. Obviously, that Arsenal fixture in 23 is a tough one. Could potentially keep a clean sheet against Chelsea. And looking at the rest of the fixtures, including a double in 25, there's a good chance he keeps a clean sheet in a few of those, right? So yeah, I really like Trent as an option. I think he's definitely a buy if you've got the cash. Now, I said that Liverpool are the defence that have conceded the fewest goals in the league so far, and that's fair enough, that's true. However, I think the Arsenal defence, particularly in FPL, is probably the best way to invest bar Trent Alexander-Arnold, just because they're slightly cheaper, and I think on the whole, in terms of expected goals conceded and so on, Arsenal are still right up there as one of the top teams. Obviously, off the back of a 5-0 win in clean sheet against Crystal Palace, could get a bit reactive about them. But I've always said on my videos that regardless of odd games where they've conceded goals or looked a bit disappointing defensively, on the whole across the season, I think the Arsenal defence is going to perform well. And now I think Arteta has gone back to his tried and trusted back four of White, Saliba, Gabriel and Zinchenko. And I think it's really working for him. And looking at the upcoming fixtures, yes, the Liverpool one in 23 is a bit tough, but the clean sheet odds I think are pretty strong. I'd say 3 of the next 5 games, they've got a really decent chance of keeping a clean sheet. And I'd also say I wouldn't get too carried away with the fact that Gabriel had a mega haul against Crystal Palace. I think either of these 4 defenders are good picks. And I think they all have their own strengths and weaknesses as well. I'd say Saliba is obviously the most expensive, but definitely the safest to start. Ben White probably offers the most attacking upside. Well, he is the most attacking of the 4 in terms of underlying numbers. But yeah, question marks, I guess, on how attacking he actually is. Zinchenko, he gets forward a lot, basically plays in midfield in that inverted left-back role. Gabriel's nice and cheap, probably a little bit less nailed than Saliba, but probably offers slightly more set-piece threat. I think if I was to choose an Arsenal defender at the moment, regardless of what happened against Crystal Palace, I'd probably say Gabriel is the standout, but realistically, you could pick all 4. Now, I know I mentioned him last week already, but I've got a feeling that Kevin De Bruyne is going to be a really useful FPL asset to the end of the season. I've always said that I don't particularly like him in FPL, but I'm probably getting a little bit carried away with his cameo against Newcastle, but it was absolutely fantastic in the 21 minutes that he played. He's got some good fixtures coming up and a double in 25. I think he's going to be so important for Man City in their run-in. I still back probably Man City to win the title, to be honest. I feel like they've kind of hit that title-winning form that we usually see of them over this sort of period. And obviously Kevin De Bruyne is going to be really important to that. I've got a feeling he's going to take all the free kicks and penalties as well. Probably not going to be quite as nailed as other Man City outfield players, but he could well be worth the risk if you want to make up some ground. And, well, in one game, he accumulated more expected returns per 90 than Haaland has this season. 1.26 makes him the top player in the league for that stat. So, at only 10% owned as well, I think he could well be a really nice differential for you. The final player I wanted to talk about, and it's a repeat of last week, but I just want to emphasise how good of an FPL asset I reckon Kyle Walker is going to be. As I said when going through Kevin De Bruyne, I think Man City have kind of hit their title running form. And looking at the fixtures they've got coming up, the next 6, obviously a double in there for 25. Burnley, Brentford, Everton, Chelsea, Brentford, Bournemouth. I mean, genuinely, Man City could keep a clean sheet in all 6 of those games. I know they do tend to concede the odd goal here and there in most games, but you know, think about it. They could well keep a clean sheet in all 6 of those games. And you can't not hold that as a bit of upside for Walker. He does seem to be getting forward a bit more than he has done in previous seasons as well. I'd say him, I think in the last 5 or 6 games in particular, he's played pretty much like an attacking right back. Very different to what we've seen from him in previous seasons, which I really like the look of. Only kept 5 clean sheets, I know, from 20 starts, but I do think that next run of games, they could well up that number. And he started every game for Man City this season. He's obviously the club captain at the moment, and he started every game. So, yeah, I would probably tell people to avoid Man City defenders on the whole, just because, you know, they concede the odd goals, and mainly you don't know who's going to play for them. But given that he started every game, I think you can consider him nailed now. All right, and that's the end of the video. A few players there to think about and keep you ticking over in the long wait we've got until the Game Week 22 deadline. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of the picks I've made. And if you enjoyed the video and want to see more from me, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel, which should be just there. And I will catch you in my next video.